Monty. I'm doing my typical 5 mile meditation contemplation walk, and it's very nice out, around 74 degrees. Doing my 5 mile walk, as I mentioned, the crunching underneath my feet is the dirt and the branches and the twigs. Very nice area where I go walking to get my cardio and to relax and de-stress. And I suggest you guys do the same thing. Today's conversation podcast is going to be all about, it doesn't matter whether or not Donald Trump is re-elected or not. Again, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump is re-elected or not. United States has the world has some very fundamental structural issues. The central bankers and the Federal Reserve and such, they have a unspoken mandate, and that's basically to keep, the majority of the citizenry impoverished, while the elitists and such, the very wealthy families and corporations, which are basically one and the same, their mandate is to keep those people in power. Not you, not me, but to keep the wealthier, well-known names, the wealthy families and corporations, to keep those guys in power. Matter of fact, the whole system is structured, beginning with the Federal Reserve and the IRS and all of that, to keep the majority of the people, again, oppressed and like an indentured servant. Now, one of the main things that you guys need to consider is when you read these headlines about this party or that party, you guys get distracted very easily. You don't know whether or not, the problem is the Democrats, or the problem is the Republicans, or the Greenies, or the leftists, or the rightists, or the centrists, or even the independents. Don't get distracted too much, because believe it or not, when you have a structural issue like what the United States has, in terms of massive money printing, centralized power, whether it's through banking, whether it's applied to how your health is provided to you, the health services, whether it's taxation, whether it's your voice in Washington, how you vote. See, a lot of that is so centralized in terms of you don't really have a whole lot of power and influence in those areas, and you're not supposed to, according to those guys. So that's the problem. Unless that changes, then nothing changes. I don't care who's in office. It can be George Washington coming back and being elected. It doesn't matter. So just keep your eyes open and peeled and realize Bitcoin and the blockchain is a clue in terms of where we need to go and what we need to do. In other words, when you decentralize power, and I don't care if that's finances, I don't care if it's the ability to vote, I don't care if it's the provision of law enforcement, health care, it doesn't matter. We need to get rid of these centralized organizations who will do everything imaginable to make sure that they stay in power and that you are left with little or no means to really prosper or benefit. So again, look at the model. Look at why Bitcoin, for instance, is going on 11 years. Okay, according to the pundits, Bitcoin was not supposed to last beyond 1 year, 2 years, when it got on the map with this run up to $20,000. Everybody took notice, but nobody understood the implications of what it represented, the Bitcoin and the blockchain. No one looked at the technical, fundamental issues for which it was invented in the first place. That's why Satoshi Nakamoto is viewed as such a very influential and powerful person. He should get the Nobel Peace Prize, mainly because no matter how law enforcement no matter how government agencies, no matter how much the politicians and such try to disrupt, try to regulate, try to crush or destroy Bitcoin and the blockchain, it seems to persevere. So, and the reason is simple. Nature in and of itself thrives on decentralization. In other words, from animals to insects to whatever, the idea is to distribute as much as possible the ability to survive and adapt. No single animal gets to rule forever or has the ability to rule. No single insect, no single plant, no single bacteria. There's a cooperation amongst all of these different elements, just like what we should be looking at in civilization with the humans. We should be looking at decentralization more and more. Where we have implemented decentralization, we can see the massive benefits. We can see that you don't shut down the internet with an internet kill switch. You don't just control the weather without repercussions. You don't just arbitrarily grow billions of acres with one crop, thinking that won't disrupt the ecosystem or the food chain. You don't just do anything along the lines of having a central point where it could be a central point of failure. So anyway, we can take a clue from decentralization with Bitcoin and the blockchain, and we can see why Trump, why Obama, why George Washington, none of these guys are actually going to change the fundamentals of how this country and this world is structured as far as what's happening with it. You have to change everything completely. And believe it or not, there's a war going on with every central banker, every commercial banker, every law enforcement person high up in the governments all across the world. They have to grapple with the idea of we can't stamp out Bitcoin, so what do? We can't put blockchain back in the bag or box, so what do? We have to adapt. I've seen every conceivable argument in terms of why some pundit is going to predict the early demise of Bitcoin. We're logging every single one of them on a website called the Bitcoin Obituaries. You can go there. You can see how Warren Buffett is wrong. You can see why Peter Schiff is wrong. You can see why famous professors from various universities, how they've been proven wrong. You know, people throw out all sorts of weird reasons why Bitcoin is not gonna make it, right? Oh my God, there's too much centralization of mining. Oh my God, what if you get an EMP attack? Oh my God, what if the planet is taken over by aliens? You know, you have to get that drastic and that dire in terms of your prognostications in order to make a case. When you get to that point, excuse me while I shake out my towel. I gotta sit in my car. I don't like to sweat on the seats, but anyway, take a look at the big picture. Look at the fundamentals. Don't get distracted, okay? Your livelihood is impacted. I'm reading more and more and more about, the things that I already know, but I like to confirm things. The savings rate is abysmal. The debt that is owed on every conceivable level is atrocious. There's a lot of things, unfortunately, that are going to stay the same, and they won't change. There's a lot of good innovation, a lot of things going on to look forward to, electric cars, solar, alternative energy sources, blah, 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 blah. But the way the power is handled, that's not going to change anytime soon. You guys are giving way too much power and control over to